That's made out of sweetgrass, and I've got it from my sister from Michigan. A friend of hers made it for her. And this is a little feather on the end of it, beaded feather. And the sweetgrass is, the smell never goes away. That smell will always be there, you know. And so this is really meaningful. I wear it as much as I can because I didn't really want to take it, but you can't refuse a gift. When somebody gives you a gift, it's a really bad sign. Don't ever refuse a gift from a Native American person, because if you get that gift, that's honor, and you got to respect that. You know? I do quill work, birch bark and quill work, and I made a set last year. It was a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I made a huge medallion with sweetgrass, porcupine quills and on birch bark. And it looked like it would look like feathers all around, white feathers. And then I outlined the outside with the green beads. And then I made a green beaded necklace to go on it. And it was sewed with buckskin. The back of it was buckskin, but I made holes and I sewed the whole thing with buckskin. And then I made matching earrings, porcupine earrings with the same kind of beads on. Anyway, I put it on Facebook, and it wasn't even on there 5 minutes. And this cousin of mine, I've never met him before, but we became friends, and he lives in Mora. He said, I want that. How much do you want for it? I want to buy it. And I said, well, I wasn't really going to sell it. I just want to show people what I can do, what I can make, you know. He said, well, no, please, please, let me buy it. He kept begging me on Facebook, I want to buy that. I want to buy that. I'll give you anything you want for it. Well, I didn't know how much to ask for it, you know, because I thought, well, it is time consuming. It's really hard work. And then, so I said, well, how about 125? Oh, I was willing to pay $300 for it. I said, no, I'm going to charge that. But yeah, he sent me $125 and I mailed it out to him. Yeah, but I think I could have got about $300 or $400 for that set. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. But I don't make that to sell, you know, I was just making it to do something. But I took classes. I took birch bark and quill work classes, and I learned how to go out and gather birch bark. Mm-hmm. You can only gather it at a certain time of the year. You can't gather it in the fall. In the spring, early spring is when you go out and gather it. And there's a certain way you gotta cut that birch bark off that tree. You don't want to go too deep, because if you do, then you ruin the tree. You'll kill the tree. So you can, you know, I got the tools and everything to do it. I was taught by a very knowledgeable man. He was my boss at one time. He passed away, both him and his wife, and they did the birch bark classes at the college. So every time they had a class, I took them. I mean, I took like 3 of their classes, and I really love it. You wouldn't believe the quills I got. I had the kids helping me sort quills. Is that a job? Well, they didn't like it, so they quit. But I've got a plastic container. It's got all these departments in it, you know, compartments, I mean. So I got all my, you gotta sort them out by size, you know, and all that. So I got that done. I know how to dye them. You can dye them different colors, so I've done that.
Where do you get porcupine quills?
Off of the porcupine.
I mean,
you find a dead porcupine on the road, you pick it up and take the quills. But I'll tell you how the old Indians used to do it. Instead of killing the porcupine, they'd throw a blanket on that porcupine. And of course, when you pick the blanket up, it's got all these quills on. And that's how I do my quills. I mean, to clean them, because they're all full of hair and stuff, you know, I put them on towels. I put the quills on towels, and then just kind of shake that towel off, and all the quills fall off there, and the other stuff stays on, you know. That's how I do my, but then there's still some on there that I pick off there that are good yet, you know, so. But yeah, I still got a whole box of quills to sort through yet. But I am going to start, I got to get some birch bark. I have a friend that's going to give me some birch bark, and I haven't gone out to get it yet, but I'm going to start these projects this winter and do all those again. I love doing that stuff. I didn't know how to do beadwork. I made beaded belts. When I lived in Minneapolis, my brother Sonny and I, we used to make beaded belts, and we'd sell them. You know, he did. I did the beadwork, and then he would do the leather. You know, we'd sew the beads onto the leather. We'd go buy leather at Tandy Company, and then we'd dye the leather. And then what he'd do is he'd put the belt down, and he'd make holes all the way down that belt on both sides, so we could sew the beads on. That's how you do it. And those, I don't know how many of those we sold. I think we made about maybe 15 of them. He used to work at the Corral Bar in Minneapolis, and so he'd have these guys come in, you know, and they'd ask for a belt, so I'd make a belt for them, and we'd get about $300 for them. So
Can you use the birch bark that's already fallen off a tree?
I wouldn't use anything that's on the ground because it wouldn't be thick enough. It'd be too thin, you know, and you need it. You need a little thickness in there to have some, you know, like when you put your quills in. And you have this. It's called a magoose. It's got a bone, like a deer bone, from the horn, and at the end of that horn, there's a nail, like a spike nail. It's pounded into that horn, and it's real sharp on the edge, on the bottom of it. So what you do is you have your birch bark, and you make your little holes to put your quills in. I'll show you tomorrow. But anyway, you make a hole with this magoose, and then you have your quills when you're working with them. You have them soaking in water, so they aren't so stiff. And then they're easier to work with. So you put whatever pattern you're making. Like if the first one I made was a turtle. I made a turtle barrette and turtle earrings. That's the first project I ever made, and I thought I did such a beautiful job. It wasn't at all. In fact, I still got one of the turtle earrings that I never finished, and I keep running across that, and I thought, God, I gotta start doing that, because we had the green, you know, the turtle was green, and the beadwork was on the outside of the earring, so we did the beadwork, and I thought I did such a good job on them, you know, and well, our teacher didn't say nothing, but we had this one guy that took a class with us, and that guy was so meticulous. He had to have everything just so. So we also made one with hearts on it, with a heart. And so we went back to class, and I thought I did such a good job, and I was just proud of mine. I looked at his, and I thought, oh my God, his was just fabulous. It was just, and he wasn't even Indian. They've made bandoleer bags. She draws the patterns out. She made all her own patterns on the bandoleer bags, and they made. They'd get orders from the Minnesota Historical Society. A lot of their stuff is in St. Paul, and yeah. Anyway, they'd call them, and they wanted a cradle board, so they made a cradle board, and that thing was gorgeous. All black velvet. And the beadwork, they did everything. And well, anyway, they made this bandoleer bag, and well, that wasn't the only one they made, but they made this one, and then they made the cradle board for the Minnesota Historical Society. So Minnesota Historical Society donated those two items to the museum in Pine City, where the first fort was built. First fur trading post. So Ivy called me up, and she goes, Tony, she said, they're having a grand opening at that new museum. You want to come along with us? Because she knew my son lived in Pine City. And I said, yeah, I'll go. So we went over there, and it was awesome. I mean, it was just beautiful. But I seen this stuff before. I seen when they finished it and everything. But they had it in this glass case, and oh, it was gorgeous. It's beautiful. But this museum in this fort, the guy that his name was John Sayers. He came from from Michigan, but he was out. His mother was the Fairbanks. And see, I'm related to all the Fairbanks, and all this goes back when they moved. When the Fairbankses came in, it came in from England. They moved to Massachusetts. Anyway, they built this log home there, and I got a picture of that log home. I'll have to show it to you. And that's still standing today. And that was in the 1500s. Yeah, that it's a historical site, and it was made by the Fairbanks family. Well, anyway, they had such a huge family, so these Fairbankses, they migrated into Michigan, then they came down into Wisconsin. Well, this John Sayers was my great-great-grandfather. I don't know, I suppose 5 generations, or 3 generations? 5 generations, probably. Anyway, he's the one that built that fort in Pine City, and I didn't know this. And I was going to Pine City. Anyway, I seen the statue of him. It was in the park there. I seen that statue, but I didn't pay any attention. I didn't know who it was. Well, I have a cousin that lives in Ogden, Utah, and him and his wife came up here. And he did a lot of research on the Fairbankses, and that's where I got a lot of my information. But he was the one that told me about this John Sayers in Pine City. And he said him and his wife went to Pine City, and they went to that museum. It wasn't a new one, it was the old museum, but they still had the fort there. And it wasn't the original fort either, it was one that was rebuilt. So they went there, and he said, oh my God, he said, we were treated like king and queen. The people were so thrilled to meet us because we were from the Fairbanks. I said, really? I said, I've been going there for 15 years. So then when I called my son right away, and I told him, I said, Paul, I said, you got to go out to that fort. You got to go see that guy out there. And his last name was Bolio. He's still there. So anyway, my son went out there, and he treated my son with, he was just so happy to meet my son too, you know. But anyway, when Ivy and I went there, it just happened this Bolio wasn't there. But I was telling the guy that was in charge there, I was telling him about, you know, this John Sayers was my grandfather. And oh my God, he was all interested. And he said, well, what information do you have? I said, I got all kinds of information, but I don't have it with me, you know, it's at home. But I said, I got information that goes back to the 1500s and from England, you know. And that guy was just amazed. And I said, well, that's funny because my cousin was the one that told me about this place. I said, I didn't know nothing about it, but yeah. So I found out a lot of things from my cousin. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, is buried here in Mahnomen. And there's well, it's not right in Mahnomen. It's out in the country, but there's a graveyard, and it's out in the middle of a field. Sorry. I drove out there, but they're not supposed to, the farmers are not supposed to take those roads out of there. But he did, this farmer did. Yeah. So you can't even get in there with the car, but that graveyard is still out there. I want to teach the kids, though. I want to teach them that, so when they grow up, they'll know how to do this stuff, and pass it on. You know, all that stuff needs to be passed on to the children. You know, and it's so important.